breathe underwater.
Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and welcome back to the show, y'all. Look here, Chris has started shooting his own mother up with heroin. Not to hurt her, in his mind, but to help her. Because she's dealing with the pain from her original back injury, plus the pain of not having that drug once you're on it. You gotta have it. Anybody that's ever been on it will tell you that it hurts your body so bad that the only relief that you think is going to work for you is by getting that drug in you. And that's what a lot of people do. They hit that dope, get up, and then they're able to go and function the rest of the day like anybody else would. And nobody would even be able to tell that this individual was an addict unless they told him. You know what I'm saying? So his mom, she becomes dependent on this heroin, and every day, twice a day, Chris comes home from the streets to inject his own mother with the drug, heroin. And every time she cries and he cries because they don't know what else to do. Him and his mother were best of friends, and he was lost in this world where, seeking outside help is not an option. And I think that's where a lot of people get it twisted, because you look at TV and you hear about all of these treatment facilities and all of these types of things, right? But the shame and embarrassment that a person feels, even the family members, the shame and embarrassment that they feel, especially back then, it wasn't like it is now, where treatment is available, readily available, and people are openly talking about it. It wasn't like that back then. It was embarrassing, and people kept it hidden as much as they could, and they dealt with their own pain, and they became prisoners in their own little space, their house. You know what I'm saying? Where they lived was their refuge. That was their prison cell. And that's where they stayed. So she only went from work back to the house to do her, whatever it is that she needed to do. She didn't get out a lot. Those drugs ended up isolating her from everybody else. She didn't attend family functions. She didn't enjoy life. She didn't do all of the things that regular people do, people that are not on drugs do. Her life was limited and restricted to going to work and shooting up. And that was her life. That was her reality. And it became Chris's reality. So one day, Chris is up on the block. And keep in mind, you hear that I'm saying Chris, right? Chris is up on the block. And he's 16 years old. And he runs into some guys that appear to be cool, they're straight. And they got these blue bandanas on. They're kicking it, having fun, and they like Chris. So they roll up on him and they smoking the joint with him and all this and that, and everybody's kicking and having fun. And they asked him, "You want to get down with us?" And after he asked a few questions and they explained to him what they were, what they did. They were an organization, Gangster Disciples. He was like, yeah. And he did that out of his mouth to my ear, because what they talked about, he hadn't seen, but what they talked about, what they offered him, was something that he had not had. Family. With no judgment whatsoever. You do you. And we'll embrace that as long as you follow these rules. And he did it. And he became a gangster disciple. And when he became a gangster disciple, he felt like he belonged to something. And they introduced him to all the other members of the family and all the other things that go on with with an organization, and he loved every minute of it. But he got close to these two individuals and thought that he could trust them with the one secret that he had not shared with anybody. And that was that his mother was an addict. His mother was an addict. And when they went by the house with him and they saw his mother, now don't get it twisted, they're teenagers too. But they are a little bit more seasoned than Chris is. Well, now he's Max C. They're a little bit more seasoned. So when they go over to the house, excuse me, let me take me a sip of this water. When they go over to the house, they see that his living situation is not all of that. So they start to tell him, look, bro, you need to do this and you need to do that. All of these different things, you know what I'm saying, about trying to improve the area. But what they were really about was trying to make sure that they could use that spot, that house, to sell drugs out of when she wasn't there. And when she would be at work, because she worked second shift, when she was at work, they were full-fledged slanging out of the house, getting money. And when she came home, they would leave. But the traffic, once you establish that traffic, you would have people coming through the house, knocking on the door at all hours during the day when she was off. And she would tell them, no, they're not here. They're not here. They're up on the corner. Go up on the corner. So she started putting two and two together, and she asked Chris, Max C, what is going on with all of these people coming by the house? And he told her the truth. He doesn't lie to his mother. He said, well, you know, a few people came by and I gave them this and gave them that, and now I guess they think they can come by. You know what I'm saying? Any time. He didn't really understand what the two brothers were doing. They were establishing a dope house. So he goes to tell them, look, we can't do that no more. They get upset with him, but they respect it. They respect it. But they start to tell him, look, man, your mom, man, she in the way. She in the way. We could make a lot of money if we had a stable place. We wouldn't have to compete with nobody. They would come to us. And he tells him, ain't no way I can do that, man. Ain't no way I can do that. I'm not finna set up shop in there. My mom needs somewhere to rest. She needs somewhere to rest. And a couple of old heads that were gangster disciples, they overheard this conversation between the three of them. And they told the two younger brothers, look, man, no. That's bro's house. That's his mom. We don't take advantage of that. We don't take advantage of that, so they backed up. So Maxie started to recognize that these two brothers were trying to take advantage of him. He had seen it with his father and mother. Somebody appearing to want to help, but at the same time they got an ulterior motive. So once he recognized that, he started to pull back from them and hang around those brothers that were a little bit older. Especially the brother that told those two younger brothers, no, back up. So now he's hanging around the older brothers and he's learning what GD's really about. It's rough, rugged, and raw. Rough, rugged, and raw. But you do have some brothers that want to stick to the code. They want to stick to the laws and do what you're supposed to do and care about each other. You have a few brothers that'll do that. And Chris wanted to be around those brothers. Because, again, he had not had family like that. So these older brothers were schooling him. And they go by the house and they check on his moms. Nothing sexual at all, y'all. They go by the house, check on his mom, look after his mom. And they tell Chris, man, you got to get her off of that. You got to get her off of these drugs, man. Because if you don't get her off of these drugs, she going to end up dead. And Chris had never heard anybody say those words to him, and it scared him. If your mom don't get off these drugs, she's going to end up dead. Period. So he sits down and he talks with his mom and he tells her, he said, look, you ever thought about going into treatment? And she told him, look, I can't afford to do that. That was just her excuse. If I go into treatment, that means I got to be off work. And if I'm missing work, then I'm going to get fired. So he said, let me think about, an option for you, right? So he go back to the old heads and he tell them, look, my mom don't want to go into treatment because she'll lose her job. So the old heads, they tell him, she ain't going to lose her job. He said, we'll take care of that. And he's like, what you mean? How you going to take care of that? He said, man, we'll go holler at the dude that owned the store. And we'll let him know. She better not lose her job. Now see, that right there convinced Chris that he had made the right decision. In that moment. Keep this in mind now. So they go holler at the owner of the store, the grocery store, and they tell him, look, she's going to go into treatment. And she still needs to keep this job. So he tells them now. So they tell him, Chris don't know this at the time. They tell him, look, we'll make sure that somebody comes down here to do her job. But she needs to keep that job. And you need to keep paying her. But we'll make sure somebody's down here doing the job, but she's got to go to treatment. So she's going to be gone in treatment for at least 3 months. So she agrees to try it. She goes into treatment, and like most people when they first go into treatment, can't do it. It's too much. She needed that. That pain was too much. In the first 7-10 days, she thought she was dying. She's throwing up, going to the boo-booing on herself, all of that. So she sneaks away. She gets out of the treatment facility and comes back home, crying to Chris, and he couldn't handle when she cried. And she said, I can't do it. I can't do it. So he injects her with some drugs, and she feels okay. And he tells her, you don't have to go back. But Bro and them knew that she was going to do that because they've seen this before. They've seen it before. So they tell him, look, man, she's going to have to go back, man, and it's going to hurt. So he respects them. He looks up to them, and he tells her, you got to go back. So they take her back. And she starts all over again, and it's the same thing. She's throwing up. She's going to the restroom on herself. She's doing all that, and the pain is almost unbearable. But they got somebody on her door watching, so she can't sneak out. She's going through it. And if you've ever heard of the withdrawals from heroin, then you know what she went through. It's pure hell. It's hell to watch. It's pure hell. But she makes it through. She makes it through. She's got a month clean, and she's doing fine. But Broad and them get arrested. They get arrested, the old heads. And now the owner of the store is wondering, where is his help at? Because nobody's coming down there to make sure that, her job is still getting done. So he hires somebody else. He's not worried about the threat from those brothers anymore. So Chris finds out that his mother has lost her job. But he doesn't tell her. He wants her to stay in the treatment. So she stays in the treatment and she completes it. Those 3 months. And now she's going to be on an outpatient thing for another 3 months. So she comes back home, and then he tells her that she had lost her job. But she goes down to the grocery store, talks to the manager, and he sees how well she's doing. And he gives her job back. So she starts working again, making the same money, everything is fine. She's doing just fine. And Chris is still in the streets. And now he's moving up. You know what I'm saying? He's 17, about to turn 18, still not going to school. But he's about to move up. Because now everybody's seeing how serious he is about getting money and how much money he's making, and he's putting a lot of money up. His mom doesn't even know how much money he's got. But his goal is to make enough money so they can get out of the area and move on and live a better life. He wants to buy our house. And he's working hard towards that. But, like all stories, there's no fairy tale ending. to these types of stories. Not for everybody involved, no matter how well intentioned you are. Because Chris was doing this for his mother. Or so he told himself that. He convinced himself of that. But you got to keep in mind, he was a kid. He didn't know what else to do. So, Chris was up on the block one day. And the police roll up on him. And they snatch him, a couple of more brothers up. Throw him in the car. Arrest him for drug possession and selling. Now, when they get him down to the police station, oh my goodness. When they get him down to the police station, they show them pictures. They tell them all types of things about what they've been doing. They even tell Chris that they know that his mother was an addict and that he was participating in helping her shoot the drugs and all of that, right? And he knew that the only people that knew that were his new family, the gangsters. Now, the two young brothers that got locked up with him, they are not the ones that told that. It was those two old heads. They were looking at being careered out. And let me explain to you what careered out means. Careered out means that you've been arrested so many times that at some point they will label you a habitual offender or a career criminal and give you a life sentence, and you won't ever get out of prison again. It doesn't have to be a violent charge. It can be a drug charge, whatever the case may be. But if they career you out, you're here. And when they threatened to career those brothers out, they gave up other members of the organization. They gave them up, and Chris was one of them. So they would be able to get a lesser sentence. They were not going to get out right then and there. They were going to get a lesser sentence. And they were going to have to testify against Chris and the other brothers unless Chris and the other brothers took plea deals. And they ended up taking plea deals. They all did. Chris pleaded to 8 years in the penitentiary. Now, he's 17, about to turn 18 years old, so what's going to happen to him? What's going to happen to his mom? That's what he's thinking in his mind the whole time. He's mainly concerned about his mom. What is going to happen to my mother? She's going to be all on her own. And she just got out of treatment, even though she's in outpatient, she's doing fine and all of these different things. What's going to happen to her? He's worried about her. So he calls from the from the jail, and he tells his mom what's going on, and she panics. She loses it. And he tells her, please, stay strong. Stay strong. I'm going to have a bond hearing soon, and I'm going to see if I can get out. And she tells him, I don't have any money. And he tells her where the money is that he's been saving. He has thousands of dollars put up. So when he gets his bond hearing, they give him a bond, and his mom bails him out. They get him out. But he's going to prison. But his main concern was to be able to get out and have that conversation with his mom and spend time with her before his trial date. And he got a lawyer with his own money, and he kept having the lawyer put the trial off for as long as he could. So he was able to spend 1.5 years with his mom while the lawyer kept putting the case off. But he told his mom, I have to go. There's no way around it. And he was going to accept this 8-year deal, and he was going to be gone. And he'd have a chance to get out after 30% of that. But he wanted to make sure that his mom was okay. And his mom assured him that she was going to be okay, and she was not going to relapse. And she thanked him for the sacrifices that he had made with his whole life. He stopped going to school, started selling drugs to help his mom, and he eventually got to the point to where his mom got off of the drugs. She got off of those drugs, and he was happy about that more than anything. But his mom was so sad that it cost him his freedom, and he was going to go to prison because he was trying to help her. But he told her, he said, I love you, and I'll do anything for you. But I'm going to prison. And he told her, I can handle it. I can handle it. I can handle it. Chris left. He went, He turned when he went to court. His mom was there with him, and he told him he was going to plead guilty and accept the 8 years and go on into prison. And that's what he did. And his mom, she cried, but she promised him she would never do another drug, and she didn't. She didn't. Because when I met that brother at the facility that we were at, he called her every day and he talked to her. She came to visit him, and I seen her a couple of times in visit. And I'm telling you, it's one of those stories like, dang, she went through it. She put him through it. But he loved his mother so much that he didn't even hold her. He didn't hold her accountable for his situation. He didn't hold her accountable for his situation. He would do anything for his mom, and he did. So you remember that. Everybody that gets in the dope game for different reasons. None of them are good. None of them are good. And no matter how well intentioned you are when it comes to situations like that, there are no fairy tale endings, y'all. There are no fairy tale endings. You still have to pay for what you do. And Chris was paying for the decisions that he made. Yeah. Remember that. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker. And I say peace, y'all.
I've been trying to breathe underwater.